A very good evening, dear friends. Today I'll critically review the poem Ode to the West Wind by the famous romantic poet P.B. Shelley. This poem has been divided there into five different cantos. In the first canto, the poet speaks about the arrival of the autumn season and the effect of the west wind. The second one speaks about the mighty nature of the west wind and the withering apart of the clouds due to the west wind. They're in the blue white sky. The third one speaks about the terror which the west wind creates there in the oceans and the sea. The fourth one speaks about the symbiotic communion of the poet with the west wind. And the fifth one is an addressal or a prayer. That is the final one of the poet to the west wind. So I'll start with the first canto. O wild west wind, thou breath of autumn's being, thou from whose unseen presence the leaves dead are driven like ghosts from an enchanter fling. Now there are few words which you have to take care. The first one here is the unseen presence. What is unseen presence? The presence which can be felt but which you cannot see. So that is the mighty nature of the west wind. Now, this magical effect of the west wind, which can only be felt, is just like the enchanter. Now, what does that enchanter mean? Enchanter is the black magician or the necromancer. As you must have heard of a necromancer, the necromancer has got a capacity to get hold of the ghost and the spirits. Similar is the effect of the west wind, which entraps the dry, dead leaves which have fallen down during the autumn season from the trees, and they are just touching the dust. Those dry leaves are withered apart or blown apart with the effect of the west wind, and they give the appearance of the black magician getting the trap of the spirits. These leaves have been referred there with different colors: yellow, black, pale, and hectic red. And there is a metaphorical reference: pestilence stricken multitudes. Now, what does that mean? Pestilence, that is disease stricken commoners. So, these dead leaves, they are no less than as helpless, disease stricken commoners who have no other option than to surrender themselves to the will of God. Similar is the effect of the dead leaves, who are helpless and who have got no other option than to get into the trap of the west wind, which can just drive them on there to different places. So it can be a personified reference also. O thou who chariotest to their dark wintry bed. So this white wind acts as a chariot, acts as a driving force for these dry leaves which are taken from one place to another, and wherever they settle down finally, that place has been referred to as the wintry bed. Why wintry bed? Because after the autumn season, the next season which comes, that is the winter season. And in the wintry season, there is no vegetation, and the very inactive nature of the seeds, which cannot sprout into the flowers. So that has been referred here as the wintry bed. So it is not the exact death, but there is an indicative reference to the inactive nature of these dry dead leaves as well as the seeds. The winged seeds, where they lie cold and low, each like corpse within its grave. So these dead leaves have been referred to as uh, just like the dead bodies or the corpse which lie within their grave, and they cannot do anything. Why? Because they have just been blown from one place to another. But that is not the finality. Since after the winter season, the spring will come, and spring has been referred to as the azure sister of the west wind, the sweet, bright sister of the west wind, which will finally give the new life there to these winged seeds as well as the different leaves, dry leaves, which have come over they from one place to another. So dry leaves would act as the manure, and the seeds will regenerate into the new fragrant flowers as the buds will sprout. Her clarion over the dreaming earth and fill with living hues and odors plain and hill, and in the parenthesis driving sweet birds like flocks to feed in air. Again, there is a simile. So the clarion here is a musical instrument. So the spring will play its music as if the shepherd is playing the music there to attract the different uh, goats and sheep behind him, those who gather which gather there in flocks following the shepherd. Similar is the effect of the dry leaves and the seeds which finally uh, get down there under the magical domain of the spring, and they sprout into the fragrant flowers with the different hues. Hues here refers to the different colors, odors, that is the different fragrance. Therein plain and hill, plain and hill, there is an oxymoron here, two opposites together. So plain and hill means that everywhere they're in a random way, fashion, wherever these seeds have been spread, those will sprout into the new flowers. Wild spirit, which art moving everywhere, destroyer and preserver, here, oh here. Now, this west wind has been referred here as both a destroyer and a preserver. That is why a destroyer, because we have heard a lot about this west wind there in these five paragraphs, and west wind has been withering apart and blowing apart the things there in a very mighty fashion. So since it is quite mighty and powerful, it has been referred here as destroyer. But these winged seeds or these dead leaves, they get a reawakening or a rebirth when they settle down there at a different place after getting driven apart from one place. So at a different place, they come out there with a different life. So this west wind has also been referred to as a preserver. So itself, it is a paradoxical statement, destroyer as well as a preserver, and that is the very nature of the west wind. So, oh here, again an addressal to the west wind, that can you hear the very nature which you have, through which you are moving from one place to another. So that is the critical appreciation of the first canto. So I'll share the second canto's video there in the next lecture, for which you have to again connect with me there on YouTube. So here I am stopping for a while, since there is a space issue. I cannot just prolong there with all the cantos there in a single clipping. So thanks a lot for watching. We'll connect there with the second video also.